scent of coffee curls through the air, mingling with the buttery warmth of pancakes sizzling on the griddle. It's a Saturday morning in 2010, and our suburban Chicago home hums with the quiet chaos of family life. I'm at the kitchen table, a stack of essays from my Lincoln High English students spread before me, my red pen poised like a painter's brush. Sophia, 8, sprawls on the living room rug, her crayons dancing across paper as she sketches mermaids with flowing hair. Mateo, 5, sits cross-legged nearby, his tongue poking out as he stacks Legos into a wobbly tower that threatens to topple. David, my husband of 12 years, hums a Springsteen tune, Thunder Road, his favorite, while flipping pancakes. Elena, blueberries in yours, he calls, his voice carrying that easy warmth I fell for back at Northwestern. You know I do, I reply, glancing up with a smile. His blue eyes crinkle, and for a moment it's just us. Two kids who fell in love at 19, now 35, building a life we swore would last forever. This is our world, a two-story colonial with creaky stairs, a backyard oak that's seen every season of our marriage, and a love I believe is unbreakable. I'm Elena Ramirez, part-time teacher, full-time mom, and the woman who keeps our home's heart beating. David, an engineer at Tech Trend Innovations, is the dreamer who brings home bonuses for Disney World trips and piano lessons. We're not perfect, but we're us. I grade papers, circling a student's metaphor about grief, and think of my own parents, Mexican immigrants who crossed the border in the 70s, scraping together a life for me and my sister Maria. They call David and me the perfect pair, their accents thick with pride during Sunday dinners at their cramped apartment. David's parents, old-money Midwesterners from Winnetka, are less effusive, their approval a nod rather than a cheer, but it's enough. We married young, at 23, in a small church ceremony, me in a lace dress I could barely afford, him in a suit that made him look like a movie star. Sophia came in 2002, Mateo in 2005, and our life stitched itself together with routines. Friday movie nights with popcorn fights, Sunday brunches where we debate pancakes versus waffles, and those stolen moments when the kids are asleep and David whispers, "You're my anchor, Elena." Today feels like one of those moments. Sophia bounds into the kitchen holding up her drawing. "Mom, look, this mermaid's you." Her dark curls bounce, her eyes sparkle with mischief. I laugh, pulling her into a hug. "She's beautiful, Mija, just like you." Mateo toddles over, Lego tower in hand. "Mine's better," he declares, and David scoops him up, ruffling his hair. "Buddy, yours is a skyscraper." We eat together, syrup sticky fingers and all, the table alive with chatter. Sophia wants to be an artist. Mateo dreams of building robots. David talks about a new project at work, something about cloud computing I don't quite grasp, but I nod, loving the passion in his voice. These are the golden days, the ones I'll cling to later when everything unravels. But even now there are shadows. David's been staying late at work, blamming big projects. Last week he came home at 10 p.m., his jacket carrying a faint floral scent I couldn't place. Not his cologne, not my perfume. I asked casually and he shrugged. Probably someone's hand sanitizer at the office. I let it go, trusting him. His phone buzzes sometimes, late at night, and he silences it quickly, turning away. I notice, but I don't press. Doubt feels like a betrayal of the vows we made under that oak tree, the ones carved into my heart. I push the thought aside, focusing on the moment. After breakfast, we pile into the minivan for Sophia's soccer game. The field is a riot of color, kids in bright jerseys, parents cheering. David and I sit on the sidelines, his arm around me, Mateo on my lap. "She's got your fire," David says as Sophia scores, her grin fierce. I lean into him, the autumn chill seeping through my sweater, and think this is enough. But it's not just work. There are small shifts, David's distraction during dinner, his irritation when I ask about his day. "Elena, can you not interrogate me?" he snapped last month when I wondered why he missed Mateo's school play. I apologized, smoothing things over, but it lingered. I try to bridge the gap, suggesting a date night, but he's noncommittal. "Maybe next week," he says, eyes on his laptop. I tell myself it's stress, that he's still the man who wrote me love notes in college, who danced with me in our dorm room to Radiohead. That night after the kids are in bed, I find him in the garage, tinkering with an old radio he's fixing for Mateo. "You okay?" I ask, leaning against the doorway. He looks up, his face softening. "Just tired, babe, work's intense." I nod, wanting to believe it. I cross the cold concrete, wrapping my arms around him. He hugs me back, but it's brief, like he's already somewhere else. I go to bed alone, the floral scent lingering in my mind, a ghost I can't name. The next year brings more of the same. David's promotions come with longer hours, and I'm left juggling the kids' schedules. Sophia's art classes, Mateo's robotics club. I love teaching, pouring my heart into lessons on Shakespeare and Toni Morrison, but it's part-time, and the alimony I'll later rely on isn't even a thought. I'm the glue, the one who keeps the calendar, the fridge stocked, the kids' dreams alive. David's gratitude comes in spurts, a kiss on the forehead, a "you're amazing, Elena," but it's less frequent. I start writing again, late at night, a novel about a woman finding her voice. David reads a chapter once, says it's nice, but his eyes are elsewhere. By 2012, Sophia's 10, all elbows and opinions, and Mateo's 7, obsessed with Minecraft. David's absences grow: weekend team building trips, conferences in Seattle or Austin. I organize family game nights, hoping to pull him back, but he's distracted, checking his phone. "Work email," he mutters. I suggest counseling one night, my voice soft to avoid a fight. "We're fine, Elena, you're overthinking," he says, shutting it down. I swallow my hurt, focusing on the kids, the house, my students. I'm still Elena Ramirez, the woman who can fix anything, except maybe this. The oak tree in our backyard stands tall, its leaves turning gold as autumn deepens. I sit under it sometimes, gratting papers, watching the kids play. It's our tree, the one we carved our initials into when we bought this house. I trace the letters D and E 1998 and tell myself we're still solid. But the floral scent follows me, and David's late nights multiply. I don't know it yet, but the threads of our tapestry are loosening, and soon they'll snap. The years between 2013 and 2017 blurred into a tapestry of subtle shifts. Like the way autumn leaves in our Chicago suburb turned from vibrant green to brittle brown without you noticing, until they crunched underfoot. Our home, once a sanctuary of laughter and shared dreams, began to feel like a stage where everyone played their roles with increasing reluctance. I was 38 in 2013, still clinging to the illusion that David and I were just going through a rough patch, the kind every marriage weathers. But the cracks were widening, invisible at first, then impossible to ignore. It started innocently enough, or so I told myself. David's late nights at Tech Trend Innovations multiplied. He'd call around dinner time, his voice tinny over the phone. "Elena, the team's crunching on this deadline. I'll be home by 9. 9 became 10, then 11. When he finally stumbled in, he'd collapse onto the couch, smelling of stale coffee and that elusive floral note, jasmine, maybe, or lavender, that clung to his clothes like a secret. I asked once early on as I folded laundry in the living room while he loosened his tie. "What's that smell?" "New office air freshener," he chuckled, a sound that didn't reach his eyes. "Probably, or someone's perfume from a meeting. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. Not at first, not overtly. I pushed it down, focusing on the kids. Sophia was 11 in 2013, teetering on the edge of adolescence, her once sunny disposition giving way to moods as unpredictable as Chicago's weather. She'd slam her bedroom door over the smallest things, a denied sleepover, a comment on her outfit. Mateo, 8, was quieter, retreating into his world of video games and Legos, his small frame hunched over the controller in the family room. I'd watch him from the kitchen, stirring pasta sauce, wondering if he sensed the tension too. One evening in late spring 2013, I decided to make an effort. The kids were at my parents' for the night, Abuela spoiling them with empanadas and stories of Mexico, and I planned a romantic dinner. I set the table with our wedding china, lit candles, and cooked David's favorite, chicken mole with rice, the recipe from my mother. I even wore the red dress he'd bought me for our 10th anniversary. When he walked in at 8:30, earlier than usual, my heart lifted. "Surprise," I said, smiling as I poured wine. He paused in the doorway, briefcase in hand, his face a mix of surprise and something else, annoyance. "Elena, that's nice, but I'm beat. Can we just order pizza?" The words landed like a deflated balloon. I swallowed my disappointment, forcing a laugh. "Sure, whatever you want." We ended up eating takeout on the couch, watching some mindless sitcom. His phone buzzed twice during the episode. He glanced at it, typed quickly, and set it face down. "Work?" I asked casually. "Yeah," he muttered, not elaborating. That night as we lay in bed, his back to me, I stared at the ceiling, tracing the shadows from the oak tree outside our window. He stressed, I thought. "It'll pass." But it didn't. By summer, the arguments started small at first, like sparks from a fraying wire. Money was one flashpoint. David's promotions meant more income, but also more spending. New gadgets, a gym membership he barely used. I'd balance the checkbook at the kitchen table, frowning at the statements. "David, we need to cut back. The kids' activities aren't cheap." He'd wave it off. "We're fine, Elena. Stop being so controlling." Controlling. Me, the one who managed the bills, the schedules, the everything while he chased his career. The kids felt it too. Sophia began acting out more, her grades slipping in math, her attitude sharpening. One afternoon in September 2013, she came home from school with a note from her teacher, disruptive in class. I sat her down in her room, posters of pop stars staring down at us. "What's going on, Mija? This isn't like you." She crossed her arms, her dark eyes defiant. "Nothing. School sucks, and you and Dad are always fighting." We weren't fighting, not loudly anyway, but kids pick up on the undercurrents. I hugged her, promising things would get better, but inside, doubt gnawed at me. Mateo was different. He withdrew, spending hours in his room with Minecraft, building virtual worlds where everything made sense. I'd knock on his door, peeking in. "Want to play outside, buddy? It's beautiful out." He'd shake his head, eyes glued to the screen. "Later, Mom." I worried about him, this sensitive boy who once clung to my leg at preschool drop-off. At school conferences, his teacher praised his creativity but noted his shyness. "He's smart, Mrs. Ramirez, but he seems anxious." "Any changes at home?" I forced a smile. "Just the usual busyness." My own work at Lincoln High became a refuge. Teaching English to high schoolers, rowdy juniors dissecting The Great Gatsby, sophomores grappling with poetry, gave me purpose. I'd stand at the front of the classroom, chalk dust on my fingers, quoting Fitzgerald. "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." The words resonated more than ever. My students' stories mirrored my own in odd ways. There was Mia, a quiet girl whose essay on betrayal in Othello was raw, personal. During a parent-teacher conference in October 2013, her mother confided, "Her dad's been distant. I think there's someone else." My stomach twisted. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice steady despite the echo in my chest. That night, driving home through the rain-slicked streets, I gripped the wheel, tears blurring the headlights. "Is that us?" David's phone became the elephant in the room. By 2014, he'd changed his password. I noticed when I tried to check the weather app while he showered. "Why the lock?" I asked lightly over breakfast. He shrugged, buttering toast. "Privacy at work. Sensitive info." I nodded, but suspicion bloomed. The buzzing was constant now, even at dinner. One tense meal in February 2014 stands out. Snow piling outside, the house warm with the scent of lasagna. Sophia was complaining about a group project, Mateo poking at his food. David checked his phone mid-sentence, typing furtively. "Who is it?" I asked, my tone sharper than intended. He looked up, irritated. "Work, Elena, always with the questions. Can I have one meal in peace?" His voice rose and Sophia slammed her fork down. "Why are you yelling at Mom? You're never here anyway." She stormed off, her door slamming, echoing through the house. Mateo burst into tears, burying his face in my lap. "Don't fight," he whimpered. David sighed, rubbing his temples. "See what you started." He pushed away from the table, grabbing his coat. "I'm going for a drive." The door closed with a thud, leaving me to comfort Mateo, my heart aching. I rocked him, whispering assurances, but inside I was unraveling. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I searched his jacket pockets, something I'd never done before, guilt twisting my gut. My fingers closed on a receipt. Dinner for two at La Bella Italia, a cozy spot downtown. The date, last Thursday, when he'd said he was at a team meeting. Wine, pasta, tiramisu, romantic, not corporate. My breath caught. It's nothing. I rationalized, shoving it back. A client dinner. He forgot to mention. But sleep evaded me, the floral scent haunting my dreams. I tried to salvage us. In spring 2014, I booked a weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast in Wisconsin Dells, surprising him with tickets. Just us, no kids, no work, I said, hopeful. He hesitated. I have that conference, I pressed. Cancel it, we need this. He agreed reluctantly, and for a fleeting weekend it was like old times, walks by the river, laughter over bad wine, his hand in mine. But on the drive home his phone buzzed again and the spell broke. Work, he said too quickly. Pattern continued through 2015. Sophia turned 13, full-blown teenager, her rebellion peaking. She dyed her hair purple without asking, got caught skipping class with friends smoking behind the gym. "You're too strict, Mom," she'd yelled during our fights. I'd ground her, then lie awake worrying about peer pressure, the dangers lurking in her world. Mateo, 10, developed anxiety, stomachaches before school, nightmares. I took him to a counselor who suggested family stress might be a factor. "Talk to your husband," she advised. I tried, but David dismissed it. "Kids are resilient, he'll be fine." My writing became my escape. Late nights after grading papers, I'd sit at my desk in the spare room typing away at my novel, a story about a woman rediscovering herself after loss. The words flowed from my doubts. She wondered when the love had slipped away like sand through fingers. I'd cry sometimes, the screen blurring, but it was cathartic. David glanced at a chapter once. "It's emotional," he said, not unkindly but distracted. By 2016, the coldness set in. David was home less, his affection wrote, a peck on the cheek, a mumbled "love you." The floral scent was a constant now, and I stopped asking. Arguments escalated, over chores, "Why can't you help with laundry?" The kids, "You're too lenient with Sophia." Money again, another gym charge. One blowout in summer 2016. I confronted him about a late credit card payment. "You're never here to handle this stuff," he exploded. "Because I'm working my ass off for this family. You're always nagging, Elena. No wonder I'm exhausted." The words hung heavy. Sophia overheard, retreating to her room with headphones. Mateo drew pictures of sad families. I suggested counseling again, my voice pleading. "We need help, David," he laughed bitterly. "We're fine. You overthink everything." But we weren't fine. The oak tree outside shed its leaves, that fall, bare branches scratching the window like accusations. In 2017, the erosion felt complete. Sophia, 15, was dadding a boy I didn't like, older, with a motorcycle. "He's nice, Mom," she'd insist, but I saw the red flags. Mateo, 12, excelled in robotics club but confided in me about bullies. "Dad doesn't get it," he'd say. David's absences were normalized now. The kids stopped asking when he'd be home. I threw myself into teaching, organizing a poetry slam that won district awards. My students' successes buoyed me. One boy, Jamal, wrote about his parents' divorce, his pain raw. "How do you move on?" he asked after class. I paused, my own marriage flashing before me. "One day at a time," I said, wishing I believed it. One night in October 2017, alone again, I rifled through David's drawer, desperate, ashamed. Lip balm, keys, and a business card. Chloe Thompson, graphic designer, tech trend. Handwritten on the back, "Can't wait for Thursday. Zoxo." My world tilted. It's her, I thought, the floral scent suddenly named. But fear paralyzed me. Confrontation meant truth, and truth might shatter everything. I cried into my pillow that night, the house silent except for the hum of Mateo's game console. The cracks were chasms now, and I was holding on by threads, unaware that David had already let go. As winter approached, I planned one last Hail Mary, a family vacation to Florida. "For the kids," I told David. He agreed, but his enthusiasm was forced. We went, splashed in the ocean, built sandcastles. Sophia smiled more, Mateo laughed. David held my hand on the beach, but his eyes were distant, phone in his pocket. Back home, the illusion faded. The floral scent returned, stronger. By year's end, I was exhausted, juggling work, kids, a marriage on life support. My novel grew, chapter by chapter, a mirror to my soul. Little did I know the storm was brewing, ready to break in 2018. But in those years I fought, I hoped, I denied. The tapestry was fraying thread by thread, and I was the only one trying to weave it back together. The storm that had been brewing in the undercurrents of our marriage finally broke on a rainy Tuesday in April 2018, shattering the fragile illusion I'd clung to for so long. I was 43, standing in our kitchen, the heart of the home I'd nurtured for 2 decades, grading a stack of essays on betrayal in literature. The irony would hit me later, but in that moment, the rain pattering against the windows seemed like a fitting backdrop to the unease I'd felt for months. Sophia was upstairs, 16 and buried in homework or texting friends, her door closed as usual. Mateo, 13, was in the living room. His video game sounds a muffled soundtrack to our evening. David walked in earlier than expected, his briefcase thudding onto the counter like a judge's gavel. His face was set in a mask of determination, the kind I'd seen when he closed big deals at work, but never directed at me. "Elena, we need to talk," he said, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth that once made my name sound like a caress. My heart plummeted, a cold dread pooling in my stomach. I set down my red pen, the essay on Macbeth's ambition blurring before me. "What's wrong?" I asked, though a part of me already knew. We'd been drifting, arguing more, but I'd convinced myself it was temporary. A midlife crisis, perhaps, or the strain of raising teens. He pulled out a chair across from me, not sitting close like he used to, and folded his hands. "I want a divorce," he said simply, as if ordering coffee. "I've fallen out of love. I need space to find myself." The words hung in the air, heavy and surreal. Fallen out of love. After 20 years, 2 kids, a life woven together thread by thread. I stared at him, my mouth dry, searching his blue eyes for the man I'd married, the one who'd pursued me with flowers and late-night poems in college. But he looked away, out the window at the oak tree swaying in the wind. "Why?" I managed, my voice cracking like thunder. "Is there someone else?" He hesitated, and that pause was all the confirmation I needed. Tears welled up hot and unbidden. "Tell me the truth, David." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Her name is Chloe. She's a graphic designer at the office. 28. She's vibrant, Elena. She makes me feel alive again." Vibrant. The word sliced through me like a knife, sharper than any betrayal in the books I taught. I was the one who'd borne his children. Endured sleepless nights with colic and fevers, supported his career while mine simmered on the back burner. I'd kept our home running like a well-oiled machine, meals on the table, bills paid, kids shuttled to activities, while he climbed the corporate ladder. And now I was dull, replaceable. "What about us? The kids?" I choked out, my hands trembling on the table. "They'll adjust," he said, his tone dismissive, as if our family was a minor inconvenience. "Sophia and Mateo are old enough to understand. We'll co-parent." Co-parent. The term felt clinical, sterile, nothing like the messy, loving reality we'd built. I pressed for more. "How long? Since when?" He admitted it had been 6 months, overlapping with those late nights, the floral scent I'd ignored, the phone buzzes he'd silenced. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he claimed, but his eyes lacked remorse. It was all about him, his needs, his rediscovery. I begged him to reconsider, suggested therapy again, but he shook his head. "It's too late. I've already spoken to a lawyer." The rest of that night is a blur of tears and pleas. Sophia heard the commotion and came downstairs, her face paling as David explained in his calm, rational voice. "Mom and I are separating. It's for the best." She burst into sobs, running back upstairs. Mateo wandered in, confused, clutching his controller. "What's wrong, Mom?" I pulled him into a hug, my heart breaking as I whispered, "Everything will be okay," even as I doubted it. David left for a hotel that night, saying he needed space. I lay awake, the bed vast and empty, replaying every moment, the business card I'd found, the receipts, the distance. How had I been so blind? Self-doubt crashed over me. Was I too nagging, too focused on the kids, not vibrant enough? The next weeks were a whirlwind of pain and logistics. David moved into a short-term rental downtown, and we told our families. My parents were devastated. Mama cried on the phone, her voice thick with her Mexican accent. "Mija, how could he? After all you've done," Papa muttered about honor and vows. David's parents were stoic, offering platitudes about modern life. Maria, my sister, flew in from Texas immediately, her no-nonsense energy a lifeline. "He's a bastard, Elena. We'll get through this." She helped me research lawyers, insisting I fight for what was mine. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, meaning we didn't need to prove wrongdoing, but David played dirty from the start. His lawyer, a sharp-suited shark named Harlan, painted me as the villain, emotionally neglectful, overbearing, prioritizing the kids over our marriage. Mrs. Ramirez smothered my client, Harlan argued in our first mediation session, a sterile conference room that smelled of stale coffee. David sat there, nodding, claiming I'd ignored his needs, that my nagging drove him away. I stared at him, incredulous. "You cheated, David. How is this my fault?" My lawyer, Sarah, a fierce woman I'd hired with savings meant for Sophia's college, countered, highlighting my contributions as the primary caregiver, but David's higher salary gave him leverage. The kids were caught in the crossfire. Sophia, influenced by David's smoother narrative, blamed me at first. "Dad says you were always complaining," she'd snap during our tense dinners, now just the three of us. I'd bite my tongue, not wanting to badmouth him, but it hurt. Mateo was quieter, withdrawing further into his games, his eyes red from silent tears. "Why can't Dad come home?" he'd ask, and I'd hug him, fighting my own sobs. We shuttled between homes, David's sleek apartment with Chloe's touches already appearing. Colorful throw pillows, art prints that screamed young and fun. Court became a battlefield. Our first hearing in June 2018 was in a crowded Cook County courtroom, the judge a stern woman with wire-rimmed glasses. Harlan trotted out emails I'd sent David, innocent reminders about bills or kids' events, twisting them into evidence of my controlling nature. "Exhibit A, Mrs. Ramirez's constant demands," he said, projecting them on a screen. I felt exposed, humiliated. Sarah fought back, presenting my teaching records, the kids' school reports showing my involvement, but the judge seemed swayed by David's polished testimony. "I just want stability for the children," David said, his voice steady. "The house is their home." Stability? He was the one dismantling it. We battled over assets, the house, savings, retirement. David wanted primary custody, arguing his job allowed flexibility, a lie given his hours. I pushed for joint, but his lawyer claimed my part-time teaching made me unreliable. Alimony was a sticking point. Sarah argued I deserved it for sacrificing my career, but Harlan called it unnecessary entitlement. The proceedings dragged through summer, each session chipping away at my spirit. I'd drive home exhausted, the Chicago skyline blurring through tears, questioning everything. Why fight? But Maria's voice echoed. "For the kids, Elena, for you." By fall, the unfairness peaked. David introduced Chloe to the kids prematurely over my objections. Sophia came home from a weekend at his place, conflicted. "She's nice, Mom, but young, like she plays Fortnite with Mateo." It stung, Chloe stepping into my role, vibrant and fun, while I was the nagging ex. Mateo confided, "She smells like flowers," confirming my suspicions. I joined a divorce support group at a community center downtown, a circle of women in a fluorescent-lit room sharing stories that mirrored mine, husbands trading up for younger models, leaving wreckage. My ex accused me of abandonment while he was sleeping around, one woman, Lisa, shared. I nodded, tears flowing. Mine says I neglected him. The group became my anchor, weekly meetings with coffee and Kleenex, where I vented without judgment. Moving out was the final blow. The judge ruled in November 2018. David got the house in primary custody, citing continuity. I got weekends, holidays split, and alimony enough to scrape by but not thrive. "It's unfair," Sarah said, hugging me outside the courtroom. "Appeal." But I was drained financially and emotionally. Packing was torture. Maria helped boxing books and clothes while Sophia sulked in her room. "Why do we have to leave? This is our home," she yelled, slamming boxes. I knelt before her. "I know, Mija, but we'll make a new one." Mateo clung to me, whispering, "I don't want to stay with Dad all week." My new apartment was a one-bedroom downtown, cramped but affordable, with peeling paint and a view of brick walls. Maria painted it yellow for hope, she said, and we furnished it with thrift finds, a pull-out couch for the kids, a desk for my writing. The first night alone, I sat on the floor amid boxes, sobbing. The silence was deafening, no kids' laughter, no David snores. I called Maria. "How do I do this?" she soothed, one breath at a time. The divorce finalized in early 2019. Papers signed in a notary's office that smelled of ink and regret. David was there, Chloe waiting in the car. "I'm sorry it ended this way," he said, but his eyes were on his phone. I walked out, head high, but inside shattered. Teaching resumed, my students a distraction. Lessons on resilience in To Kill a Mockingbird, ironic parallels to my life. The kids adjusted unevenly. Sophia's anger softened during our weekends, baking cookies in my tiny kitchen. Mateo's visits were quiet, building Legos on the floor. But the pain lingered. Driving past our old house, seeing Chloe's car in the driveway twisted the knife. David's life moved on, social media glimpses of dates, vacations, while mine was rebuilding from rubble. The storm had broken me, but in the debris I glimpsed strength. The support group echoed, "You're not alone." And slowly I believed it. As 2019 dawned, I wrote more, my novel evolving into a tale of survival. The oak tree, now David's, symbolized what I'd lost, but I planted a small ficus in my apartment, a new beginning. David couldn't take that from me. The divorce papers were signed, the ink dry, and by the spring of 2019, I was a 43-year-old single mother living in a one-bedroom apartment in downtown Chicago, a far cry from the suburban colonial I'd called home for 2 decades. The silence of my new life was deafening. No creaky stairs, no kids' laughter echoing through the halls, no David humming Springsteen in the kitchen. The oak tree in our old backyard was now a memory, replaced by a view of brick walls and the hum of city traffic outside my window. I was Elena Ramirez, still a teacher, still a mother, but now a woman piecing herself back together from the wreckage of a marriage unfairly torn apart. The apartment was small, 600 square feet of peeling paint and creaky floorboards, but it was mine. Maria, my sister, had flown in from Texas the week I moved, her suitcase barely unpacked before she was wielding a paint roller, splashing the walls with a hopeful yellow. "This place needs life, Elena," she said, her dark curls tied back, paint speckling her jeans. We scoured thrift stores for furniture, a pull-out couch for Sophia and Mateo's weekend visits, a wobbly dining table, a desk for my writing. The kids' room was a corner with air mattresses and their old posters taped to the wall, Sophia's pop stars, Mateo's robots. "It's cozy," Maria insisted, but I saw the pity in her eyes as she hugged me goodbye. "You're stronger than you know." Those first months were a grind. My alimony covered rent and basics, but I took on extra classes at Lincoln High, night school, summer sessions to make ends meet. Teaching was my lifeline, the classroom a space where I could still be Ms. Ramirez, confident and in control. My students' essays on resilience in their eyes were watching God mirrored my own struggle, their words a quiet balm. One girl, Aisha, wrote about losing her mother to cancer, her prose raw with grief. "How do you keep going?" she asked after class, her eyes searching mine. I swallowed, thinking of my own nights spent crying into a pillow. "You find something to hold on to," I said, "even if it's just a spark." I didn't tell her my spark was flickering. Weekends with Sophia and Mateo were my anchor, though they came with their own weight. Sophia, 16, was still angry, her teenage defiance now laced with confusion over the divorce. "Dad says you guys just grew apart," she'd mutter, picking at her nails during our first weekend together in the apartment. I'd nod, biting back the truth about Chloe, not wanting to poison her against David. "Sometimes people change," I said, stirring cookie dough in my tiny kitchen, the scent of vanilla a small comfort. She helped reluctantly, her purple-streaked hair falling into her eyes as she scooped batter. "These are better than Chloe," she admitted later, munching a cookie. I smiled, but my heart ached. She'd been to their house, our house, where Chloe was playing mom. Mateo, 13, was quieter, his anxiety more pronounced since the split. He'd bring his Lego sets, building intricate structures on my living room floor while I graded papers nearby. "Do you miss Dad?" he asked once, not looking up from his robot model. I paused, choosing my words. "I miss the family we were, buddy, but I'm here always." He nodded, his small fingers snapping pieces together, but his silence screamed louder than words. I worried about him constantly, his stomach aches returning, his school counselor nodding. He seemed withdrawn. "He needs stability," she said during a call. I wanted to scream that I was trying, that David's betrayal had stolen that stability. David's new life, meanwhile, was a glossy Instagram reel I couldn't escape. Sophia and Mateo would come back from his place with stories. Chloe's trendy decor in our old house, her attempts to bond over video games or art projects. "She's nice, Mom, but she's not you," Mateo said once, his voice soft. Sophia was less kind. "She tries too hard, it's weird." But their social media told a different story. David and Chloe at a rooftop bar, her arm around him, captioned, "Living our best life." Hawaii in summer 2019. Chloe in a bikini, David grinning like a man reborn. Each post was a dagger, proof he'd traded our family for something vibrant. I unfollowed him, but the kids' phones kept the images coming, unintentional wounds. My support group at the community center became my sanctuary. Every Wednesday, I'd sit in a circle of folding chairs under fluorescent lights, clutching a styrofoam cup of coffee, listening to women whose stories echoed mine. Lisa, a nurse whose ex left her for a coworker, shared my rage at being painted as the villain. "He said I was boring after 15 years of raising his kids," she vented, her hands twisting a tissue. Another woman, Karen, described her ex's new girlfriend moving into their home. "She's using my dishes, sleeping in my bed." I nodded, picturing Chloe in my kitchen, and shared my own story, David's accusations, the courtroom's unfairness. "How do you not hate him?" I asked one night. Lisa squeezed my hand. "You don't, but you learn to live for yourself." Living for myself was a foreign concept. I'd been David's wife, Sophia and Mateo's mom, the teacher who stayed late for her students. But slowly I tried. I wrote more, my novel evolving into a collection of short stories about women surviving betrayal. Late nights at my desk, the city's hum outside, I poured my pain into words. She stood in the ruins of her life, gathering stones to build anew. One story, about a mother reclaiming her voice, caught the eye of a small literary journal. They published it in fall 2019, my name, Elena Ramirez, in print for the first time. Maria framed the page, hanging it in my living room. "You're doing it, sis," she said over Skype, her grin wide. I smiled back, but the victory felt small against the loneliness. The kids' visits were bittersweet. Sophia's anger softened by late 2019. She'd spend hours sketching at my table, her art darker now, stormy seas, broken ships. "You okay, Mija?" I asked. She'd shrug. "Dad's house is weird. Chloe's always there, but he's not happy." I didn't pry, but her words stirred something. Hope. No, not that. Curiosity, maybe. Mateo's visits were quieter. He'd build Legos or play games on my ancient laptop. One night he showed me a robot he'd programmed at school, his eyes lighting up. "I want to study computer science, Mom." I hugged him, pride swelling. "You'll be amazing." By 2020, the world shifted. COVID lockdowns hit and my teaching moved online. I Zoomed with students from my apartment, my ficus plant a backdrop, while Sophia and Mateo stayed with David during the worst of it. "Safer at the house," he argued, and I couldn't disagree. The apartment was too small for quarantine. But it meant weeks of FaceTime with the kids, their faces pixelated, their voices distant. "Chloe trying to teach me yoga," Sophia groaned once, rolling her eyes. Mateo whispered, "Dad been drinking more." My stomach twisted, but what could I do? I wasn't their primary home anymore. When in-person visits resumed, the kids brought more glimpses of David's life unraveling. "He and Chloe fight sometimes," Sophia confided in summer 2020, now 18 and applying to colleges. "She wants a ring, I think," Mateo nodded. "Dad's sad when she's not around." I listened, my heart a tangle of pity and anger. He'd chosen this, why was he sad? Then in fall 2020, the first sign of his regret came. A late-night call, his voice slurred with whiskey. Elena, I miss our family. Maybe we made a mistake. I froze, the phone heavy in my hand. Memories flooded: our wedding, Sophia's first steps, Mateo's giggles, but so did the pain of his betrayal. You made the mistake, David, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Good night. I hung up, shaking, and cried myself to sleep. He tried again in early 2021, showing up at my apartment with a bouquet of roses, the kind he used to buy me in college. I was wrong, he said, standing in my doorway, his eyes bloodshot. Chloe, not you, can we talk? I looked at him, this man who'd called me neglectful, who'd taken my home, my kids' stability, and felt a new strength. No, David, you chose this. Live with it. I closed the door, my hands trembling but my resolve firm. He left voicemails after that, pleading, but I deleted them, each one a brick in the wall I was building. Teaching kept me grounded. My students, now virtual and in-person hybrids, were a lifeline. I organized a virtual poetry slam in spring 2021, my kids watching from David's house, cheering as my students performed. You're a cool teacher, Mom, Mateo texted, a rare smile in his words. Sophia sent me one of her sketches, a woman rising from flames. It's you, she wrote. I taped it above my desk next to my published story. Socially, I leaned on my support group and Maria's calls. Lisa invited me to virtual happy hours, where we'd laugh over wine about dadding disasters or ex-husbands' midlife crises. You're better off, she'd say, and I started to believe her. I dated once, a coffee meetup with a history teacher named Mark, but it felt wrong, like trying on someone else's clothes. I wasn't ready, not yet. By summer 2021, Sophia was off to college art school in Minneapolis, her goodbye tearful but proud. I'm sorry I was mad at you, Mom, she whispered at the airport. I hugged her tight. You're my heart, Mija. Mateo, 16, stayed with me more, his robotics passion blooming. David's calls tapered off, but the kids' updates painted a picture. His relationship with Chloe was fraying, his drinking a quiet issue. I felt a pang of pity, but it was fleeting. He'd built this cage. My apartment, once a symbol of loss, became home. The yellow walls glowed in the morning light, my ficus thrived, and my writing desk was cluttered with notes for my story collection, Resilient Hearts. I wasn't whole yet, but I was rebuilding, stone by stone. David's regret was his burden. I was learning to carry only my own. By the fall of 2021, I was 46, and the raw edges of my post-divorce life had begun to smooth, like a river stone worn by time. My one-bedroom apartment in downtown Chicago, once a stark reminder of loss, was now a haven of yellow walls, thrift store charm, and the quiet hum of my own resilience. Sophia was 19, thriving in her first year at art school in Minneapolis, her texts full of sketches and dreams. Mateo, 16, was a junior in high school, his robotics projects winning awards, though his quiet anxiety lingered. Teaching at Lincoln High remained my anchor, my students' stories of hope and struggle a mirror to my own. But across town, in the house I once called home, David's life was unraveling, and his regret was beginning to seep through the cracks he'd created. The first signs came through the kids. Sophia, home for a weekend in October 2021, sprawled on my pull-out couch, scrolling through her phone. Dad and Chloe are fighting a lot, she said, her voice casual but her eyes sharp, watching my reaction. I stirred pasta on my tiny stove, the scent of garlic filling the air. Oh, I kept my tone neutral, not wanting to pry, but my heart quickened. Yeah, she continued, tucking her purple-streaked hair behind her ear. She wants to get married, I think, but Dad's like weird about it. Mateo, building a Lego spaceship at the dining table, nodded. He's sad when she's not there, drinks more. I froze, the wooden spoon still in my hand. David's sad, the man who'd called me neglectful, who traded our family for a vibrant 28-year-old. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on dinner. Let's eat, I said, forcing a smile. But Sophia's words lingered, a faint crack in the wall I'd built. The calls started soon after. Late one November night, my phone buzzed, David's name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering. It was nearly midnight, and I was grading essays on the bluest eye, the apartment quiet except for the city's distant hum. Elena, he slurred when I answered, his voice thick with whiskey. I miss our family. I think we made a mistake. My breath caught a flood of memories. Our wedding under the oak tree, Sophia's first laugh, Mateo's tiny hand in mine colliding with the pain of his betrayal. You made the mistake, David, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. You chose Chloe, you don't get to rewrite that now. He mumbled something about being sorry, but I hung up, my heart pounding. I sat on my couch, staring at the ficus plant in the corner, its leaves catching the lamplight. Regret. Now. After he'd taken the house, primary custody, our life. He didn't stop. In December, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, a bouquet of roses in hand, the same kind he'd brought me in college when love was new and uncomplicated. I opened the door, startled, my sweatpants and messy bun a stark contrast to his pressed shirt and desperate eyes. Elena, I was wrong, he said, stepping forward. Chloe, not you, she's. It's not the same, can we talk, try again? I stood frozen, the roses scent overwhelming, a cruel echo of happier days. I saw the man I'd loved, but also the one who'd sat in court, nodding as his lawyer called me controlling. He wasn't sorry for hurting me, he was sorry his new life wasn't perfect. No, David, I said, my voice firm. You chose this, you don't get to walk back in. I closed the door, my hands shaking, and leaned against it, tears burning but unshed. He knocked once more, softly, then left. The roses stayed outside, wilting in the cold. The kids noticed his shift. Mateo, during a weekend visit in January 2022, mentioned David's mood swings. He's grumpy all the time, Mom. Chloe's always mad. We were building a puzzle on my table, a 1,000-piece ocean scene, his fingers precise with the pieces. Does he talk about me? I asked, hatting myself for the question. Mateo shrugged. Sometimes. He says he misses how things were. Sophia, FaceTiming from her dorm, was blunter. He's a mess, Mom. Chloe's moving her stuff into the guest room. I listened, my heart a tangle of pity and resolve. I didn't want David's life to implode, but I wouldn't be his safety net. My life, meanwhile, was finding its rhythm. Teaching hybrid classes, part Zoom, part in person, kept me busy, my students' resilience inspiring me. One boy, Jamal, wrote a poem about his father's absence, its raw honesty echoing my own pain. You're helping us, Ms. Ramirez, he said after class, and I smiled, feeling a spark of purpose. My writing flourished too. Another story from Resilient Hearts was accepted by a literary journal in spring 2022, this one about a woman rebuilding after betrayal. Maria mailed me a bottle of champagne, her note reading, "You're a rock star, sis." I sipped it alone, the bubbles sharp on my tongue, and felt a quiet pride. The support group remained my haven. Wednesdays at the community center, we'd share updates. Lisa's new job, Corinne's dadding adventures. Have you tried it? Lisa asked one night, her eyes teasing over coffee. I laughed, shaking my head. Not ready, maybe never. But a week later, at a school fundraiser, I met Alex, a widower and history teacher with kind brown eyes and a gentle laugh. We talked over cheap wine, bonding over our love of books and bad puns. Can I call you? He asked as the night ended. I hesitated, then nodded. Our first coffee date in March 2022 was tentative, but his warmth was disarming. You're easy to talk to, Elena, he said, and for the first time in years I felt seen. David's attempts escalated. In April, he sent an email, the subject line simply, "I'm sorry." I know I hurt you, he wrote. I thought Chloe was what I wanted, but I miss us. The kids, the home, can we try therapy? I read it at my desk, the city skyline glittering outside, and deleted it without replying. Therapy. Now, when he'd laughed off my suggestions years ago. His regret felt selfish, a longing for the comfort I'd provided, not for me as a person. I wrote instead, my fingers flying over the keyboard. She refused to be his anchor again, her roots now deep in her own soil. The drama peaked at Thanksgiving 2022, a holiday that crystallized everything. David insisted on hosting at the old house, claiming it was for the kids. Sophia, home from college, and Mateo begged me to come. It'll be weird without you, Mom, Mateo said, his eyes pleading. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The house looked the same yet alien, Chloe's colorful pillows on my old couch, her art on the walls. Dinner was tense, the dining table laden with turkey and tension. Chloe played hostess, her smile tight as she passed mashed potatoes. David drank too much wine, his eyes darting between us. It erupted when Sophia mentioned college. "Mom's been helping with my application," she said, proud. David's face darkened. "Maybe if your mom hadn't been so focused on you kids, we'd still be together." The room stilled. I set down my fork, my voice low but steel. "Don't you dare, David. You left for Chloe. You don't get to rewrite history." Chloe flushed, muttering, "This is why it's hard." Sophia stood, furious. "You're the one who left, Dad. Mom's the one who's always there." Mateo grabbed his coat, following her. "We're going with Mom." I stood, heart pounding, and we left, the door slamming behind us. In my apartment, we ate pie on the couch, the kids curled against me. "We love you, Mom," Sophia whispered. I held them, tears falling but stronger than ever. David's calls resumed after that, more desperate. "I'm losing everything," he said in a voicemail, his voice breaking. "The kids hate me. Chloe's distant. Help me fix this." I didn't respond. Sophia and Mateo's loyalty had shifted. They spent more time with me, their visits filled with laughter, Sophia's art critiques, Mateo's tech talk. Alex became a fixture, joining us for pizza nights, his calm presence a contrast to David's chaos. "He's nice, Mom," Mateo said, approving. Sophia grinned. "Better than Chloe." By late 2022, David's life was fraying visibly. Sophia reported Chloe moving out temporarily, their fights escalating. "Dad's a wreck," she said, pity in her voice. I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was fleeting. He'd built this, not me. My life, meanwhile, bloomed. My story collection was nearing completion, a publisher interested. Alex and I grew closer, our dates simple, walks along Lake Michigan, talks about our pasts. "You're incredible, Elena," he said one night, his hand brushing mine. I wasn't ready for love, but I was open to possibility. The kids thrived. Sophia's art won a school exhibition. Mateo's robotics team went to nationals. I was their rock and they were mine. David's regret was a shadow, but it couldn't touch us. My apartment, once a place of loss, was now home. Yellow walls, ficus thriving, my desk cluttered with stories. I was Elena Ramirez, not David's wife, not a victim, but a woman writing her own ending. By 2023, I was 48, and the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of my marriage felt like a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, hope, and hard-won independence. My Chicago apartment, once a stark symbol of loss, was now a sanctuary. Yellow walls glowing under morning light, my ficus plant thriving in its corner, my desk cluttered with drafts of resilient hearts, my short story collection that had become my lifeline. Sophia, 21, was in her third year of art school in Minneapolis, her texts bursting with sketches and ambition. Mateo, 18, was a high school senior, his robotics projects earning scholarships and his quiet smile returning. Across town, in the house I once called home, David's life was unraveling, his regret a heavy shadow he couldn't escape. But I was no longer his anchor, I was my own. The year began with whispers of David's decline, carried to me by the kids. Sophia, home for winter break in January 2023, sat cross-legged on my pull-out couch, sipping coffee. "Chloe's gone, Mom," she said, her voice matter-of-fact but laced with pity. "Moved out right after New Year's. Said Dad's too emotionally unavailable." I raised an eyebrow, stirring oatmeal on my stove, the scent of cinnamon grounding me. "And Dad?" Sophia shrugged, her purple-streaked hair catching the light. "He's a mess, drinking a lot, snapping at us." Mateo, tinkering with a circuit board at my table, nodded. "He's always on his phone, but not like before. It's like he's waiting for something." I didn't ask what Chloe's return, my forgiveness, a time machine. It didn't matter. His choices were his cage. Teaching at Lincoln High remained my constant. My students, now a mix of in-person and hybrid learners, were a lifeline. In spring 2023, I taught the house on Mango Street, Sandra Cisneros' words resonating with my own journey. She does not belong to him, but to herself. One student, Rosa, a shy sophomore, wrote an essay about her mother's strength after leaving an abusive father. "You remind me of her, Ms. Ramirez," she said after class, her eyes bright. I smiled, my heart swelling. "That's the best compliment, Rosa." Her words stayed with me, a reminder that I was building something new, not just for me, but for Sophia and Mateo, for my students, for the women in my support group who'd become my sisters. David's attempts to reconnect intensified, each one a desperate grasp at a past he discarded. In February, he emailed me, the subject line, "Please read." "Elena, I've lost everything," he wrote. "Chloe's gone, the kids barely talk to me, work's falling apart. I know I hurt you, but I want to fix this. Can we try therapy? As a family." I read it at my desk, the city skyline glittering beyond my window, and felt a flicker of pity, but not enough to reply. Therapy now, after he'd laughed off my pleas years ago. He wasn't seeking redemption. He was seeking salvation from his own regret. I deleted the email, my fingers steady, and turned to my writing. She stood firm, her roots deep in her own earth, unmoved by his storms. The kids were navigating their own paths. Sophia, home for spring break, showed me her latest project, a series of paintings about rebirth, vibrant swirls of color rising from ash. "This one's you, Mom," she said, pointing to a canvas of a woman emerging from flames, her face serene. I hugged her, tears pricking my eyes. "You're incredible, Mija." Mateo, accepted into a computer science program at the University of Illinois, spent his weekends with me, coding apps on my laptop. "I want to make something that helps people, Mom," he said, his voice earnest. I ruffled his hair, pride swelling. "You already do, buddy." Their loyalty had shifted fully to me, their visits to David's house, still our old colonial, now stripped of Chloe's colorful touches, brief and strained. "It's not home without you," Sophia confessed once, and I held her, my heart full. My support group at the community center remained a refuge. By summer 2023, our Wednesday nights had evolved, less tears, more laughter, though the pain lingered. Lisa, now dating a kind pediatrician, toasted to new beginnings with cheap wine. Karen shared stories of her solo trip to Italy, her eyes sparkling. "What about you, Elena?" they asked. I smiled, thinking of Alex, the widower and history teacher I'd been seeing since 2022. "I'm good," I said, and meant it. Alex was a steady presence, dinners at cozy bistros, walks along Lake Michigan, conversations about books and grief. He'd lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago, and his empathy was a balm. "You're a force, Elena," he said one evening in June, his hand warm in mine as we watched the sunset over the lake. I wasn't in love, not yet, but I was open, and that was enough. The literary world was kind to me that year. In July 2023, a small press accepted Resilient Hearts for publication, set for release in early 2024. Maria flew in to celebrate, dragging me to a dive bar where we danced to 90s hits, her laughter infectious. "You're a published author, sis," she shouted over the music, her tequila shot raised. I laughed, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The book was a collection of stories about women surviving, betrayal, loss, reinvention, each one a piece of my soul. I dedicated it to Sophia and Mateo, and to every woman who rises from the ashes. David's fall continued. In fall 2023, Mateo told me David had lost a promotion at Tech Trend, his drinking a rumored issue at work. "He's always apologizing now," Mateo said, frowning as we ate pizza in my apartment. "Says he messed up with you." Sophia, visiting for a weekend, was harsher. "He's pathetic, Mom, keeps asking about you." I nodded, keeping my face neutral, but inside I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Not for David, but for the man I once loved, now a shadow of himself. His emails kept coming, long, rambling pleas for forgiveness, suggestions of coffee, family dinners. "I want to be better, Elena. For you, for the kids." I deleted them all, my walls unyielding. He couldn't reconnect, not because I hated him, but because I'd outgrown him. The book launch in March 2024 was a triumph. The independent bookstore in Wicker Park was packed. Students, colleagues, Maria, Sophia, Mateo, and Alex in the front row, their cheers echoing as I read from Resilient Hearts. "This is for anyone who's ever had to rebuild," I said, my voice steady. Sophia's eyes shone with pride. Mateo grinned, snapping photos. Alex squeezed my hand afterward, whispering, "You're incredible." Maria hosted a party at my apartment, the small space overflowing with laughter, music, and love. "To Elena," she toasted, and I felt whole, not broken. David tried one last time that spring. He showed up at the bookstore during a signing, his face gaunt, his suit wrinkled. "I read your book," he said, holding a copy. It's powerful. I'm so sorry, Elena. I looked at him, this man who'd once been my world, now a stranger carrying his regret like a weight. Thank you, I said, signing his copy with a polite smile. But I've moved on. He nodded, eyes wet, and left. I watched him go, feeling nothing but closure. By 2025, my life was vibrant in its own way. Sophia's art was gaining notice. She had a gallery show planned in Minneapolis. Mateo started college, his dorm room filled with tech gadgets and my old ficus, a gift for his new chapter. Alex and I were steady, not married, not rushing, but together in a way that felt right. We'd cook dinner with the kids, laugh over board games, plan trips to museums. Maria visited often, her Texas drawl filling my apartment with warmth. One quiet evening in October 2025, I sat on my couch, a draft of a new story on my laptop. The city hummed outside, but inside I was at peace. In my mind, I saw the oak tree from our old house, its branches still reaching, a symbol of what was. David's regret was his to carry, a shadow cast by his own choices. I'd planted my own roots here in this small apartment with my kids, my words, my strength. I was Elena Ramirez, mother, writer, survivor, and my tapestry, once unraveled, was now woven anew, vibrant and mine.